Welcome back. I am so excited to have you here for another explainer. Today, we're taking on a topic that has absolutely frustrated, well, pretty much everyone who's ever studied the English language. We're diving into the fascinating and, yes, sometimes totally maddening world of English prepositions. Now, if you're an intermediate learner, you've probably already nailed the basics of place and time. But today we're going to navigate the tricky physical world of movement and transportation. We're going to treat this explainer like a literal journey, step by step, and conceptually map out exactly how native speakers unconsciously choose their words. So, let's get moving.
Okay, let's just dive right in and address a super common frustration. Picture this. You're boarding a flight for a vacation. Are you in the plane or are you on the plane? It sounds like such a simple concept, right? But honestly, it traps even the absolute best intermediate English learners. Like, why on earth do we say we're in a car but on a plane? When, let's be real, both are basically just metal boxes with seats. Well, by the end of this explainer, you won't just be memorizing the answer, you're going to actually understand the physical logic behind it.
Section 1. Prepositions in motion.
All right, so to get to our destination, we obviously have to start moving from point A to point B. We'll kick off our trip with the absolute most fundamental directional preposition out there, to. It simply indicates movement toward a destination. Think of it like a giant arrow pointing exactly where you want to go. The classic example we have is perfect. I am walking to the park. It's simple, it's direct, and it sets our trajectory.
Now, let's see how this builds. We take the direction of to and add the boundary crossing vibe of in. So the preposition into brings this whole extra layer of meaning. It means you're moving from the outside to the inside of something. You are physically crossing a threshold. Think about this concept. He jumped into the swimming pool. You aren't just moving toward the water anymore, you are actually breaking the surface and entering that space.
Naturally, if we can go into something, we absolutely need a word for the exact reverse action, right? And that is where out of comes in. This indicates movement from the inside to the outside. Once again, it's all about crossing a physical boundary, just in the opposite direction. For example, she took her phone out of her bag. The phone physically leaves the enclosed space of the bag and enters the open air.
Okay, pay really close attention to this next one. Through describes movement from one side of an enclosed space to the other. Try to really feel that sense of being physically surrounded while you're moving. That enclosed feeling is the key characteristic here. Think about a train. The train went through the dark tunnel. The tunnel literally surrounds the train on all sides as it travels from one end to the exact opposite end.
Now contrast that 3D enclosed feeling of through with our next concept. Across emphasizes movement from one side of a surface or a line to the other. It's essentially flat. So for example, we walked across the bridge. You aren't enclosed by the bridge, you're just traveling over its flat surface from point A to point B. And honestly, distinguishing between the flat surface of across and the enclosed space of through is a massive game changer for visualizing English grammar.
Moving on to Section 2, the transportation secret rule.
So, we've walked, we've jumped, we've moved all around. Now, halfway through our journey, we need to pick up the pace and board a vehicle. Which brings us to the hidden mechanics of English transportation grammar. You see, native English speakers don't sit around memorizing lists of vehicles. Instead, they unconsciously apply this brilliant little test. Let's call it the stand-up test. And what's really fascinating about this hidden mechanic is that it's based entirely on physicality. It literally comes down to your body's limitations when you interact with a vehicle.
So here's exactly how the stand-up test works. For Rule A, if you must sit down to enter the vehicle and you physically cannot stand up or walk around in it, you follow this rule. But for Rule B, if the vehicle is large enough that you can stand up and physically walk around inside it, you go with Rule B. Just imagine the physical comedy of trying to stand straight up and walk around inside a tiny little sedan compared to casually strolling down the aisle of a massive passenger bus. Your physical posture literally dictates the grammar.
Let's take a look at the vehicles that fall under Rule A. We have the car, the taxi, and the helicopter. Because you are physically forced to sit and stay seated in these tight, enclosed spaces, you absolutely must use the preposition in. You get in the car. You are in a taxi. She is in a helicopter. You're confined inside that space.
Conversely, let's check out Rule B vehicles. Here we've got the bus, the plane, the train, and the ship.
Because you have the physical space to actually stand up and walk the aisles on these larger modes of transit, the English language treats them almost like a flat surface that you're walking across. Therefore, you get on them. You are on the bus. We are on a plane. You don't use in because you aren't confined to a single seated position for the entire boarding process. Make sense?
Now, the crucial point here is that Rule B has one highly logical exception. What if you're on a bicycle, a motorcycle, or, even a horse? You certainly can't stand up and walk down an aisle on a horse. But because you are physically sitting exposed on top of the ride, rather than being enclosed inside a box, you also use on. You're on a bicycle. He is on a motorcycle.
And this breakdown brilliantly illustrates the entire transportation cheat sheet in one place. If you ever get confused, just visualize the simple logic. Are you in a car or taxi where you can only sit? Then you're in. Are you on a bus or a plane where you can walk around? Then you're on. Are you on a bicycle, sitting on top? Then you're on. See, it's not just random memorization. It's a beautifully consistent rule based entirely on physical space.
All right, section 3. Tricky places. In versus at.
Okay, so we've navigated the journey, we've ridden the transportation, and we have finally arrived at our destination. But wait, English has one more challenge for us. When we arrive at a building, we actually have to choose exactly how we relate to it. And getting this next concept right, it instantly elevates your English fluency. Both at and in can be used for places, but the meaning completely shifts. We need to sharply contrast the intended function of a building with the physical reality of being confined inside its walls. At refers to the general location or the broad purpose of the building. In, on the other hand, strictly emphasizes being physically inside the four walls of the structure.
Let's use the hospital as our test case here. If you tell someone, I am at the hospital, using at tells the listener about your relationship to the hospital's purpose rather than your strict GPS coordinates. You're likely visiting someone, maybe picking someone up, or you're just in the general vicinity of the medical campus. Essentially, you're interacting with the idea of the hospital. But look what happens when we change that one preposition, I am in the hospital. Notice how swapping just one tiny word completely flips the meaning? Now, the emphasis is entirely on being physically enclosed inside the building. Actually, most of the time, to a native speaker, saying I am in the hospital means you are physically admitted as a patient to a room. It implies a much deeper, more permanent physical confinement within those walls. Literally, one word changes you from a healthy visitor to an admitted patient. Crazy, right? We've covered some incredible ground today, from moving through tunnels to walking on buses to navigating hospital visits. So to wrap up our journey together, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. Let's say you're lucky enough to travel to space. When you strap in for liftoff, are you in a rocket or are you on a rocket? I'm going to leave you to apply the stand-up test to this ultimate edge case to see if you've truly mastered the secret rules. Think about the physical space, apply the logic, and I will see you in the next explainer.